Russia declares it will end the ISS program.
Very large rockets, the same general size as the Starship.
It's gonna be gas. Nice. It kind of looks like Starship. Largely under centrifuge. Finally, they told me to be really quick, so I am. Once a year, the European Space Agency organizes open days at ESTEC in the Netherlands, which is the European Space Research and Technology Center. This year was kind of special, being the first in-person open day since the COVID break. Throughout the day, the visitors can explore the ESTEC premises and meet ESA scientists, engineers and astronauts, with whom you can discuss the details of their work. There is a plethora of things to see and events to attend, way more than is possible to see in one day. I was waiting for an opportunity to visit ESTEC. Before I only visited their Space Expo and was hungry for more, so naturally I had to be there. So I was late for the bus. It left in front of my eyes. It is really cool to see how many people showed up to the event. After going through the flag alley, I went to visit the NL Space Stand, a place for Dutch space companies to show off their work.
De maan of in de ruimte? Wat doe je eigenlijk in de ruimte?
Ja, wat astronauten doen, is niet het vakantie vieren, hè? Niet alleen maar leuk zweven en naar buiten kijken.
Alright, so that part here is meant to open up the solar panels, and it's flying on Bepi Colombo, made by Airbus, and on the Orion. Cool stuff. Afterwards, I went on to listen to the space talks. Here are some highlights.
So I was the first to write on a commercial rocket. I can also say on a used rocket, a recycled rocket. I was the second one, and my rocket, after bringing me to space, it landed again. We brought a satellite to space, it landed again. We brought some antennas to to space, and landed again. And probably will bring many more astronauts there. So it shows also we are in a transition phase from the old style of flying to space to the new commercial era. And while I was in space, I became also space tourist, and yeah, they all came on this new recycled rockets. And I believe we, as Europe, we need to not only take note of it, but we need to be actively taking part in this evolution of the new era, the new dawn of commercial spaceflight. But you asked, like, how did it feel? Yeah, I should say how it feels. It's the only impression I have. Sorry, I'm talking so much. So, my dear friend Alexander Gerst from Germany, who flew to space, he wrote on a Soyuz rocket. And he told me, the Soyuz rocket, you don't even feel when it leaves the pad. It's so smooth, it's really smooth. So I feel like, okay, that's it. And then countdown, bang, 3, 2, 1, and bam! I had a massive kick in my back. Because the Falcon 9 is a really vicious beast, and so I was wild right up to space. In 10 minutes, you're up there in space, but then you're watching weightlessness for 6 months, and you enjoy the lack of gravity. Nice. Space rocket, she could actually work that on the European robotic arm. And that also should give you a little bit of the background when you hear in the media, Russia declares it will end the ISS program in 2024. They said like it's not in 2024, they said like after 2024. It's going to be 2030 or 2040. Currently, nobody would gain anything if you stop the ISS program. We are now in the phase where the ISS is fully functional. We run a lot of experiments, I have more than 100, and currently we produce a lot of science. So it's important that we keep this project flying, running, and after the Ukraine war is over, the ISS will again also be the bridge when we establish a new friendship with the partners.
Okay,
So, this material, in times of a pandemic like in Corona, it is the best experiment we could have. If I, as a sick person, would touch a surface, a door handle, for example, and after a few minutes you come and you touch the same door handle, you might get my microbes and you might get sick from it. And so we want to cut this transmission by using modern materials. This could be one of the solutions. If we have a door handle made of this stuff in hospitals or in elevators, not like surface areas that are touched very often, then we could use smart materials to stop the transmission rate. Really, really important experiment.
And so you can see there's a lot happening here, but that's not even all. There's more, and first of all, there will be a second human lunar lander developed. We don't know yet who that will be. That company has not been selected yet, but there is also a company called Blue Origin, owned by Jeff Bezos, who also owns Amazon. They are committed to also building a human lunar lander, which will very likely become part of Artemis. They are also developing very large rockets, the same general size as the Starship, also fully reusable. And you can already see the launch pads are brand new in Cape Canaveral. This will be another reusable, high-capacity launch vehicle that will become part of this infrastructure. Absolutely fantastic. They will compete directly with SpaceX. So there's a revolution happening here. You see the motto of the Open Day today is Accelerate Space. And that's truly what's happening here. There's so much going on. It's really fantastic.
For astronauts, that things float. You're afraid to lose a little data card or a little cable. It will not fall on the floor. So it can go everywhere. So the biggest fear is to lose something important for a repair, for an experiment. And it happened to me that I was working. It was on my first flight. I was working, and then in the corner of my eye, I saw something floating. And that was a temperature data locker from an experiment. It escaped from some kind of experiment, but luckily I saw it. Otherwise, it's gone. So we have even wanted posters on board. Wanted, so stuff that it must be there, because we cannot escape from it. So actually, everything that you move around has a barcode. So we fly around with this paper stored in barcode readers, and so everything you put away in another place, you scan it first. Now one day I had to put something away in one of the modules. And I opened this cupboard and it doesn't fit. It's already something in there. So I call the crowd and I say, do you have another location for me? Because there's already something in there. It doesn't fit. And they said, what do you mean? According to the database, it's empty. So I went back, radio set, serial number. Ah, you lost it a year ago. So even if you have a day and you have a scare, if you put it in the wrong place, like at home, nobody can find it anymore. So the space station is full with stuff, and maybe you need it only 4 years later for another expedition. So that's why you have to be very much aware of where is your stuff. Now here, this kind of experience, you install them, and it can be a nice struggle with your octopus. Because I realized when I did it that there I am as a Dutch astronaut from a European space agency, working with a Canadian robotic arm to bring an American commercial spacecraft to an international space station. It's beautiful, all the nationalities and technologies come together. So that was very nice to do that. It's like being in a science fiction movie.
You talk about with Russian colleagues.
Yeah, so you see that I was in space. I launched in November last year, and I launched when the world was perfectly fine up here now on the ground. And then I was there also on the 24th of February when the Ukraine war started. And for us in space, that was a really, really sad moment. Because we've been flying to space and we still believe, even now, space is a unique way to create cooperation between the different countries in the world. Out there, we don't see any borders. We just see our planet. And we also see the challenges that we need to face. We see climate change and the consequences of climate change. And we think like, out there, we are humans. It doesn't matter if I have a Dutch passport, a German passport, American or Russian passport. We're representatives of humanity. And by working together, we can do the best to solve the challenges of our planet. So, and this strong belief that we had, it got a small crack on the 24th of February when the war started. I thought, like, honestly, we live in the 21st century, something like a war in Europe, that's impossible. And unfortunately, it's reality now. But we as a crew, we were absolutely on one side. We said, like, war is absolutely no solution. It's the worst that can happen. The Russian colleagues, some of them even have family in Ukraine, so they are sitting between the chairs. And so it's as hard for them as for us. And we as a family, we kept on working as a family. Because when you do a space walk, you're out in space. You're two persons. And your life depends on the other person. And if that is a Russian, it's your best friend. It doesn't matter if it's a Russian or an American. So only if you have 100% trust, you can work efficiently in space. And I think our space family kept the spirit, and we hope that once the war is over, and once all the people who decided to go to war are no longer in power, then space will be again a way to bridge the differences here on the ground.
You can watch the full speeches of both astronauts on my channel. I especially recommend watching Matthias Maurer on the ISS. The talks were incredibly interesting, but left me with just around 3 hours to explore the rest of the complex. To use the time well, I moved on to see some of the facilities at ESTEC. Guys, you have quite a nice show. Here's Sentinel-1 satellite. Here we progress to the Sentinel-6. Here, Sentinel-5P. We'll go and visit all the other satellites later. There's more interesting stuff. In the meantime, Earth-Care satellite. He's everywhere. Nowhere to hide from him in this building. Just when you think you can hide, he's there again.
Explorer. So, Explorer means we're trying to demonstrate in orbit a new measurement technique. So we're trying to measure fluorescence. What does that mean? That is going to tell us something about the health of vegetation, whether plants, vegetation, whether they're healthy or not. The principle of this is that all vegetation on Earth is doing photosynthesis. It's a complex chemical process, but which is impacted by environmental stresses, how we call it. So drought, high and low temperatures, pesticides and so on. And all this has an effect on how effective the photosynthesis inside a plant works. If a plant, for example, is not healthy, then you cannot see it immediately because it might be green but not healthy. And the reason is the plant, if it is not healthy, it has to emit excessive energy which it takes up from the sun. It has to emit that energy again because it cannot use it in its photosynthesis process. And this emitted energy is in the infrared range. It's called fluorescence. That's what we're trying to measure. So if we take images of vegetation on the ground and it's all red, then we know this area of vegetation is not healthy. And then later, that's our vision. If a farmer, for example, has his own app and he sees everything is red in my area, then he can react immediately. Today he cannot see it looks green, everything else it might not be. Because there's too much pesticides, or maybe it's too dry. So we're trying to measure this with our instrument. It's an optical measurement from space at 800 kilometers altitude. And this emitted radiation is very, very faint, very small section. It has to travel all the 800 kilometers through the atmosphere, so very difficult to measure. And that is the reason why we fly in tandem with another satellite called Sentinel-3, which gives us information. These are the measurements from Sentinel-3. Gives us in situ at the same time the information about the atmospheric state, so that we can do an atmospheric correction, go to that, and have a chance to measure the signal. What you will see here inside is a small experiment. You can see basil plants or other plants, where you can see this light, this little fluorescence. And If a plant is healthy, then you see it glowing only a little bit of red. If you pinch the leaf, for example, you will see that in that area where you pinch it, the photosynthesis is disturbed, it doesn't work. So it's glowing much more red. And you can see that the plant really lives, it really reacts immediately to external influences. That's this little experiment just to show what we're trying to do. The reason for these kind of explorer missions is because we're trying something new. It also means that we're already at the cutting edge of new technologies. So to develop this optical instrument is really not easy. Unfortunately, it takes more time than we have planned, but eventually it will come and will fly.
It's recorded, but I just had a great conversation about Galileo satellites. If you're interested in them, you can watch my video on the European Space Agency. There's a lot of exciting things to come. Here are the goodies. It's the IVX, if I recall, prototype that was used for the drop test. ESA needs it because they're working on the Space Rider also. So if I recall correctly, this was put high in the air, dropped and landed. You can see the parachutes, I think, at least. There is nothing to read anywhere about it, so I just can guess. Nice. Here we enter the main hall. Really cool area, the testing corridor. Would love to spend more time there, but we can only be here until 5, and there are more interesting things to do. Sadly, they did not show really the labs inside there, but had some interesting conversations. Still on the way, but for all of the tank watchers, LM2. Don't get close. This, hot water. It kind of looks like Starship. Dream chaser. That's weird. Nothing much here. Okay, I asked them. It's just here for the show because the room was empty. Okay. They're not doing anything with Sierra. No spoilers, they just had it. Okay, now we are approaching a centrifuge. My voice is a bit better, I drank something. I think it's in that round building, we'll see. Real up with microscopes. I would love to see that. Oh, here. A random positioning machine. Okay, so it simulates microgravity by constantly randomly changing the direction of the gravity vector with respect to the sample. So in theory, the force is the same for every direction over a period of time. Cool. Large diameter centrifuge. As I thought in the building that I showed. So I guess you put the experiments into those boxes and you spin them to simulate higher G's.
Good on Jupiter, is it because the gravity is low or high? Because in Jupiter you have 3G, and 3G alters the bubbles such that it's higher, but you don't need to go too high, because if high would high because of water or something. I'm not an expert there.
Sadly, this was all for the test center. The main rooms were closed this year for visitors, as there were some classified satellite parts in there that they could not show to the public and apparently had nowhere to put them. I guess I will have to visit next year. Next stop, the Erasmus building. Damn, this place is big. Sadly, they don't let us everywhere. Kind of understandable. Ooh, this looks like it's gonna be cool. ESA. Oh, is this real size? The arm, likely. Finally. Cool, so now we have space-based solar power.
Yep, space-based solar power. I don't know how much you know about it, but the idea is to get the solar energy directly from space, because you don't have a day-night cycle, you don't have a winter-summer cycle. So you have essentially a constant, continuous, clean source of energy for us and for other uses like powering a lunar base or a Mars base.
Okay, so how established is this technology? How much longer till we can reliably have solar power?
So the idea has been around for since the end of the 60s, and it has been looked at several times. The conclusion in all the previous time was that yes, this is something interesting, but it's prohibitive mostly from a cost point of view, because the cost of launch is too high, or the cost of manufacturing and launching these big things. Now we think that the cost of launch has gone down with reusable rockets, etc. And we have technologies coming online such as on-orbit manufacturing, on-orbit assembly, which could help a lot for this. And on top of that, you have the current energy crisis, climate change crisis. So we think it's the right time to have a fresh look at this technology.
Okay, so the number one issue with it was just the sheer weight that you would need to put in orbit, right? Or are there any other significant technological challenges?
There are significant technological challenges. First one being improving the efficiency of the solar conversion, solar panels. Improving the efficiency of the electricity to radio frequency conversion, because we are planning to beam the energy through microwaves, and also being able to build and maintain very large structures in space, about 10 times the size of structures we can actually send to space.
Okay, great. So new rockets like Starship and New Glenn will allow us to just go forward in this process of learning. For this technology.
All right, so like new reusable heavy launch systems like Starship, like New Glenn, like future European heavy launch system, if Europe decides to build some, is definitely a plus for this, because it decreases the cost of launch and allows to regularly send payload to space to build these structures.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mock-up of an ATV. So we have your cargo over here, it goes and then it's discarded into the atmosphere. Cool. This big red button stares at me, it says do not touch, but it's red. Hi, thank you very much for agreeing to talk to me. Could you briefly tell us who you are and what you do with ExoMars?
Okay, so my name is Jorge Vago and I'm the project scientist for the mission.
Stop right there. This video is already too long and this conversation about ExoMars is really interesting. It will get a video of its own, so subscribe and stay tuned to see that. Or I could. They told me to be really quick, so I am. Okay, that's for you guys. One last look at the buildings. Sadly, I could not visit everywhere. Ran out of time. However, hopefully we can redo it next year on another open days.
Show them to the world is that the test centre has been closed. So the Hertz chamber is always a highlight of every open day, normally and hopefully next year. The Hertz chamber is a place where effectively we simulate outer space. Now, there are lots of different things we need to do when we simulate outer space. We need to be in a vacuum, for example, because there's no air in space.
Overall, my experience at ESTEC Open Days was extremely positive. There was a tremendous number of people there and there was a lot to see, even with the main testing facilities closed. I love that ESA is transparent in that way, and it seems like all of the people I talked to on and off camera were really excited to share their work. After getting some ESA drip, it was time to head home. I can't wait to come to ESTEC next year and hopefully see all of the testing facilities. In the meantime, you can watch my video with all you need to know about the European Space Agency. I will also post my regular content soon. Subscribe and like if you enjoyed the video, and see you in space.